Bro literally has negative aura and 0 life skills, but he somehow entered a cheat code to become the only dude on Earth who can pilot a hyper-advanced mecha suit, which completely breaks the server rules, so the government ships him off to an exclusive all-girls combat academy. And instead of actually grinding his stats, my guy immediately starts accidentally pulling every single thirsty baddie in the lobby who desperately wants him to slide into their DMs. So on his very first day at the Infinite Stratos Academy, Ikika is sitting at his desk sweating buckets like a certified level 1 Guna when he realizes he's the only guy in the entire building. Which makes sense because this school is literally designed to turn top-tier waifus into elite mecha pilots. But Ikika is the ultimate glitch in the Matrix. So when the teacher tells him to stand up and introduce himself, he notices every single chick in the room staring at him like he's a limited edition legendary drop. And bro instantly starts getting massive performance anxiety. But right before he completely crashes out, his older sister Chifuyu spawns in and literally smacks the factory settings out of his head, announcing she's the new homeroom teacher. And instantly, all the NPC girls in the class start heavily glazing her because she's straight up one of the most overpowered pilots on the server, but she hits them with that Sigma stare to shut them up, casually dropping the fact that she's about to carry them through the tutorial phase. Fast forward to lunch, and while Ikika is suffering from the sheer success of having random girls simp over him, his childhood friend Haoki pulls up and demands a 1v1 chat. But as soon as they touch grass outside, she starts blushing aggressively because this absolute tsundere didn't actually have anything important to say and just wanted to lock down his aggro since they haven't queued up together in 6 years. After wasting time talking, they head back to base where bro gets handed the mecha instruction manual, but his Internet Explorer brain literally cannot process the patch notes. So his sister looks at him struggling and asks the class if they're all this brain dead, only to figure out that Ikika is the sole absolute noob in the entire lobby. Right after class, this blonde baddie named Cecilia struts up with max confidence, loudly claiming she's a national representative candidate. But Ikika has 0 law knowledge and doesn't even know what that means, leaving the entire chat absolutely stunned. So she furiously explains she's the top-tier VIP from the land of terrible food, and bro should be kissing the ground she walks on. Before asking how a complete bot like him even bypassed the anti-cheat to get enrolled here despite being a clueless dude. To which Ikika casually mentions he accidentally packed up an instructor during the entrance exam, triggering her massive ego because she thought she was the only one with that kind of W-Riz. She rage quits the conversation, leaving Ikika to head back to his dorm, sweating over how he's gonna protect his purity ring from all these absolute menaces. But the second he opens his door, he catches Haoki absolutely lacking, walking out of the shower in just a towel. And they both freeze like their controllers disconnected before she completely crashes out and screams at him for screen peeking. So he panics and yells that the admins assigned him this room too, but as she lunges for her katana to send him to the gulag, he tactical sprints outside and locks the door, begging her to chill from the hallway, which is a massive mistake because he's instantly swarmed by a mob of level 99 simps trying to steal him. Fearing for his life, he begs Haoki for a revive, so she opens the door completely geared up and yanks him back inside to safety. She then interrogates him on why they're sharing a spawn point, pointing out that guys and girls co-op rooming is totally out of pocket. And when Ikika says he's clueless, she turns red and asks if he specifically requested to duo with her, before immediately rushing him with her wooden sword. Bro barely parries the attack and desperately tries to beat the allegations, so she backs off and drops some heavy server rules to stop him from interrupting her gooning hours. But the second they argue over who gets bathroom priority, she starts tweaking again and grabs her weapon for round 2. Trying to survive, Ikika grabs a random sword to block, only to realize he just picked up the blade holding her secret push-up plot armor pads. She snatches her fake buffs back in a panic, but when bro drops a lethal roast asking why a flat-screen TV needs them, she straight up one-shots him back to the lobby. The next day at lunch, she is still incredibly salty about taking that massive L and gives him the silent treatment. Suddenly, a squad of random girls pull up to his table trying to spit game, which completely tanks Haoki's vibe, making her rage quit the cafeteria. Later on, his sister tells the chat to vote for a class leader, and out of nowhere, 2 girls vote for Ikika, leaving him completely flabbergasted. Seeing this absolute travesty, Cecilia stands up, declares that letting a male NPC lead them is cringe, and aggressively challenges him to a 1v1 on Rust. He accepts instantly, thinking he can just right-hook her back to the kitchen, but the class bursts out laughing, reminding him that the patriarchy got nerfed to the ground when mechas dropped, hitting him with major anxiety. Right after, his sister drops the news that his custom mech will spawn in a few days, mainly because the standard female models don't have enough hitbox space for his massive dude energy. Hearing this, the whole lobby starts gossiping, assuming he's some pay-to-win Nepo baby, while he wonders if having a custom skin is really that deep. Just then, Cecilia slides in saying she's hyped he's getting custom gear, because she didn't want to get cancelled for bullying a default skin while she flexes her premium loadout. Ikika is mind-blown that she has one too, so she takes the chance to remind him that she is quite literally the main character of England, flexing that there are only 467 of these mythic items in the entire game, making her an absolute titan. Another girl chimes in, dropping major lore that the dev codes for these mechas are heavily classified, and every single core was crafted by Dr. Aniplot, who, plot twist, is actually Haoki's older sister. Since this dev absolutely refuses to drop more loot, the admins handed out mechas to each country based on server population, meaning only players with massive government clout get access to these personal loadouts. But since he's the first guy to ever break the gender lock, the devs gave him a custom suit just to farm his telemetry data. A random classmate then directly asks their teacher if Haoki and the famous doctor are related, and when the teacher confirms they're sisters, the whole chat loses their minds. Everyone starts yapping about how the doctor went entirely off the grid, and the whole world is searching for her. But Haoki loudly announces she has zero connection to that woman and doesn't know her IP address. The vibe gets incredibly toxic, so the teacher forces everyone back to the lesson, while Ikika sits there confused about why Haoki's family dynamic is totally shattered. Meanwhile, Miss Maya starts dropping heavy exposition about how the mechas literally have artificial intelligence, and grinding playtime with them buffs your synergy stats. She tells the class to treat their mechs like loyal duo partners, but when a random chick asks if they can treat them like actual boyfriends, Maya instantly starts tweaking and blushing, completely lost in the sauce, imagining a giant robot rearranging her guts. The entire class bursts into laughter at her brain rot, but Ikika completely ignores the comedy, hardcore hyperfixating on Haoki's tragic family backstory. Soon as the bell rings, he slides over to hype her up, even trying to get the whole squad to grab food with her. But when she rejects him, he assumes she's just fishing for attention and grabs her hand with literal zero riz, so she judo throws him straight onto his flat cake. Even though she feels slightly bad, she keeps up the hardcore goth baddie persona, so this time, bro literally drags her outside by force, making her blush insanely hard. In the cafeteria, he hits her with the classic, "I'm just looking out for you bro" dialogue, and even though it melts her cold heart, she continues acting like a total hater. Mid-meal, he asks her to coach him for his upcoming boss fight, but she hits him with the coldest shoulder possible. However, when a high-level senior tries to step in and train him, Ikika instantly blocks her, boldly claiming he's only sparring with Haoki, which makes her drag him to the dojo, where she proceeds to absolutely pack him up in record time, leaving him staring at the ceiling, realizing he is completely cooked. Later in the locker room, Haoki is secretly geeking out over how much his stats have leveled up over the years, and remembering him grabbing her hand has her doing backflips in her head. She convinces herself she's only training him so he doesn't embarrass the class, but reality check, she's totally down horrendous and just wants to share his airspace. A few days later, bro's premium mecha skin finally drops, but the second he touches it, he starts zoning out like he just downloaded 3 terabytes of forbidden lore. When Haoki asks if his game crashed, he mutters that his spidey senses are tingling but his CPU can't process the files. When he finally jumps into the cockpit, Miss Maya explains his ultimate ability called Absolute Defense, an overpowered cheat code that auto-blocks fatal damage but completely drains his stamina bar to 0. Fully booted up, he launches into the server arena where Cecilia is floating there waiting to ruin his day. and she literally tells him she'll spare his life if he apologizes and sniffs her armpits like a tier 3 sub. But obviously bro refuses the devious request, so she instantly pops her ultimate and blasts a laser right at his dome. Ikika tanks the hit right in the jaw and starts free-falling, but his plot armor kicks in and he regains his balance at the last possible frame. Cecilia starts spamming her ranged attacks with 0 cooldown, completely pinning him down and forcing him to play defense. But as his HP bar starts flashing red, he materializes his melee weapon, prompting Cecilia to roast him for bringing a literal butter knife to a sniper lobby. Despite getting memed on, my guy just keeps W-keying straight towards her, and as the spectator chat watches in suspense, she arrogantly hits him with the "you lasted longer than most" line, before deciding it's time to send him back to the lobby. She unloads her entire arsenal at him, but bro somehow downloads her attack patterns mid-fight and starts dodging everything like he's using movement scripts. He realizes she's hard-locked to using only one weapon class at a time, leaving Miss Maya completely shook by his massive IQ play, considering he usually acts like an absolute NPC. But his sister knows better, claiming she's watched him grow up and knows he's just acting cocky before a massive fail. Right on cue, he tries to rush her but steps straight into a proximity mine, taking a missile directly to the face and eating massive AoE damage. However, when the smoke clears, bro is completely unfazed, and the chat realizes his mecha skin has entirely shape-shifted. Suddenly, his suit's AI announces a successful sync, and Cecilia's jaw drops as she realizes this absolute madman was putting up a fight using the laggy default settings this whole time. Now that his gear is fully calibrated to his stats, he quickly mods his sword, unlocking the exact same legendary blade his sister used to dominate the meta. He drops a cold one-liner about inheriting her legacy and protecting the squad, before popping his sprint button and charging straight at the British baddie. This time he successfully closes the gap and is literally 1 pixel away from packing her up, but his energy shield hits 0 at the worst possible moment, resulting in a tragic game over. Back at base, he demands answers from his sister, and she drops the harsh truth that he accidentally spammed an illegal move called barrier invalidation, a broken mechanic that bypasses enemy armor to deal direct true damage to the pilot. The massive catch is that it siphons your own HP bar to cast it, which is exactly why his controller died mid-swing. Miss Maya jumps in to explain that a match instantly ends the second a player's shield breaks, meaning his overpowered attack is basically a toxic double-edged sword that guarantees a self-KO if he misses. She then logs out of teacher mode and reminds him he can spawn his suit from his inventory whenever, tossing him the patch notes so he doesn't accidentally brick his hardware on day 1, and later that evening, as he's walking home with Haoki, he admits he's insanely salty about the loss. She acts super shy and suggests they just keep grinding duos in the training range like always. When she nervously asks if he still wants her as a coach and he says yes, her entire mood gets a massive buff. Meanwhile, Cecilia is standing in the shower, violently questioning her life choices while aggressively thinking about how badly Ikika folded her in the arena. The very next day, his sister gathers the whole server for a mandatory tutorial on basic flight mechanics for the mechas. Cecilia and Ikika are pulled up to the front as the test dummies, and while she equips her gear in a single frame, bro is lagging out trying to navigate the menus. Once he's finally suited up, Cecilia takes off flawlessly, while Ikika completely fumbles the controls and almost face-plants into the dirt, confirming his absolute noob status. He desperately tries to tail her flight path, but his movement speed is totally nerfed, forcing him to admit out loud that he straight up has a massive skill issue. After hearing that massive self-report, Cecilia drops her speed and literally offers to handhold him through the tutorial, but before she can, Chifuyu suddenly drops a new server rule, demanding everyone perform a steep dive followed by an instant break. Cecilia instantly locks in and executes the maneuver flawlessly, but when my guy Ikika attempts it, the physics engine completely punishes him, sending him straight to the dirt and absolutely shattering his lower half. The whole squad gathers around the massive impact crater he just dug, only to see his premium mecha skin completely despawn, leaving him curled up in the fetal position looking absolutely pathetic. After confirming he didn't actually log out of life, Haoki aggressively calls him out for being a total brain-dead NPC, but Cecilia totally ignores her, hopping straight into the crater to give him some desperate moral support. Bro tries to play it cool and says he's fine, but she immediately switches to full pick-me mode, insisting she needs to personally escort him to the med bay anyway. Haoki instantly cuts her off, loudly declaring it's totally pointless since the mecha's passive shielding prevents actual HP loss, which sparks a massive 1v1 argument between the two top-tier waifus while Ikika just lays there, fully realizing he might actually be the main character of a harem lobby. Fast forward to that night, and the entire server randomly throws Ikika a massive surprise party, heavily glazing him for securing the class rep title. But when Bro asks how he even won the election, Cecilia casually drops the fact that she forfeited, meaning he quite literally secured the W by default because no one else queued up. All the other NPC girls are absolutely hyped to have a guy leading them and even start plotting how to aggressively spoil him, but watching him get glazed this hard makes Haoki violently jealous. Right on cue, a girl from the server's news board pulls up and snaps a quick screenshot of him, before casually asking if Cecilia wants to get in on the clout. Cecilia eagerly accepts the co-op request and is told to shake hands with Ikika for the thumbnail, but as she leans in way too close, Haoki looks ready to completely crash out. But at the very last frame, the entire mob of girls photobombs the shot, causing Ikika to awkwardly laugh because his zero-is hardware literally cannot process this much female attention at once. Later that night, while Bro is finally chilling in his spawn point, Haoki aggressively launches a pillow straight at his face, demanding he look at the wall while she unequips her daily outfit. Even though he's annoyed at the disrespect, he tries to act like a Sigma male, but the second he hears her changing, his intrusive thoughts start acting extremely sussy. Once she's fully geared back up, he turns around and immediately notices she equipped a brand new belt, and she actually drops a compliment on his perception stat. Trying to be smooth, he casually replies that he stares at her every single day, which accidentally inflicts massive emotional damage to her Tsundia heart, forcing her to dive straight into bed. With the room totally dark, she shyly drops a rare apology for being so toxic earlier, and he brushes it off like a true bro before they both finally log off for the night. The very next day, the class chat is popping off with rumors about a new transfer player from the China server who already claimed their region's rep title. While Ikika is trying to process the new law, the door gets kicked open and in walks Rin, aggressively announcing herself as China's absolute top-tier VIP. Bro's memory files instantly recover her data because they go way back, but when she immediately challenges him to a 1v1, he literally laughs it off because she's acting way too sweaty compared to the noob he used to know. Realizing she's not being taken seriously, Rin starts throwing an absolute tantrum, but before she can fully crash out, Chifuyu spawns behind her and bonks her back to reality, commanding her to return to her own lobby. Fast forward to the lunch phase, they finally sync up to trade law since they haven't queued together in a year, which immediately triggers the jealousy meter of every other girl in the cafeteria. Ikika and Rin grab a private table to avoid the aggro. And while they're yapping, she aggressively interrogates him on how he actually bypassed the anti-cheat to pilot a mecha during the exams. He straight up confesses that he completely failed the navigation puzzle during the test, accidentally wandering into a random dev room where a test unit was just sitting there. He touched it, the RGB lights booted up, and the admins walked in right at that exact moment, leaving everyone absolutely flabbergasted because a male player had never bypassed the gender lock before. Bro says a bunch of random cutscenes played out after that, and now he's stuck in this chaotic server. But suddenly, Haoki and Cecilia aggressively crash their lunch date, fiercely demanding to know if Ikika and Rin are currently dating. Ikika frantically tries to beat the allegations, swearing Rin is just an old tutorial buddy, which accidentally hits Rin with critical emotional damage. He then introduces Rin to Haoki, dropping the massive law that Haoki was his very first friend while Rin was his second, and getting rank number 2 is still enough to make Rin blush. As the goth baddie and the new girl size each other up, Cecilia feels completely left out of the party, so she loudly announces she's England's main character, only to brutally realize absolutely no one in the circle gives a single damn. Once Rin figures out Ikika is actually the class rep, she eagerly offers to carry him through combat training. But both Cecilia and Haoki aggressively gatekeep him, telling her to touch grass because she's not even in their guild. Rin completely ignores their toxicity and continues to heavy rage bait, flexing that she has the most lore with Ikika because he used to always raid her fridge for free loot. The two girls immediately snap their necks towards Ikika, demanding a full explanation. And Bro sheepishly admits Rin's parents run a local food spot where he farmed his daily HP. He casually asks Rin how her dad's doing, but she hits him with an incredibly sus answer before vaguely promising to meet up later. That same evening, Cecilia and Hauki literally wage war over who gets to boost Ikika's stats, and by the end of it, Bro is completely drained of all stamina. He drags his broken body to the locker room to regen, but Rin suddenly spawns in with a fresh towel and an energy drink. While he's busy wiping off the sweat, she softly asks if he has any secret dialogue to drop now that they've finally reconnected, but Ikika completely misses the QuickTime event and bluntly states he's going back to his room since Hauki should be done hogging the bathroom. Hearing this absolute bombshell, Rin furiously asks if he's actually clapping Hauki's cheeks, but he instantly denies it, claiming they're strictly platonic roommates. She pretends to accept that answer, but then instantly pulls a devious lick and hauls all her inventory straight into Hauki's room, aggressively demanding Hauki swap rooms with her because living with a guy is clearly too toxic for her. Hauki straight up denies the trade request and tells her to kick rocks, but when Rin acts like a total NPC and ignores her, Hauki grabs her wooden katana and goes for the kill. Suddenly, Rin partially equips her mecha arm to block the strike, calling Hauki absolutely unhinged for attacking an unarmed player, which actually hits Hauki with the guilt debuff. After that absolute chaos, Rin corners Ikika and asks if he remembers their childhood vow, but when he guesses total garbage, she slaps the taste out of his mouth and calls him a complete bozo. Completely confused, he begs her to just drop the lore drop and tell him the promise. But instead of explaining, she issues a formal challenge for the inter-class tournament, declaring the winner gets to force the loser to do one humiliating task. When tournament day finally drops, the matchmaking system pairs Ikika directly against Rin, and as he hovers up to her, she smugly tells him to forfeit now before she uninstalls his game. But Bro hits back with massive cap, telling her to prepare herself because he's about to absolutely dominate her hitboxes. They both hit the dash button at the same time, and Rin throws the first heavy attack, but Ikika successfully parries it, which actually makes her respect his grind. She then equips her massive legendary weapon and swings again, and this time, the raw stat difference completely overwhelms his defenses. Watching the stream from the admin room, Cecilia is violently confused why he's not spamming the meta movement tech she taught him, while Chifuyu just silently observes the massive skill issue. Getting completely styled on, Ikika admits out loud that he's severely underleveled and needs to tactical retreat to create some space. But Rin is playing hyper-aggressive and refuses to let him breathe, hitting him with a massive energy beam that sends him violently crashing back to the lobby floor. As Bro literally tastes the dirt and his shield bar hits critical, Maya jumps on the mic to explain Rin is spamming Shock Cannon, a broken attack that weaponizes compressed air into invisible bullets. And the worst part is she can essentially aimbot these projectiles from literally any angle, leaving absolutely zero frame advantage for Ikika to counter. Meanwhile, Ikika struggles back to his feet like a true tryhard, and Rin instantly resumes spamming her ranged attacks. Somehow, he actually dodge rolls through the bullet hell and pushes forward, hyping himself up by remembering he's wielding the exact same weapon as his overpowered sister. Flashback to earlier, he had begged Chifuyu to unlock new weapons for his loadout, but she bluntly reminded him he barely knows the controls and forced him to stick with his base gear. Back in the fight, Ikika considers using his illegal barrier invalidation cheat code, so he yells out that he's finally trying just to maximize her aggro. As she takes the bait and charges, Maya realizes Bro is cooking something, and Chifuyu confirms he's activating Ignition Boost, a movement tech that instantly maxes out his speed stat. If his timing is perfect, he might actually secure the W, but the major nerf is that this ability literally has a one-time use per match. Back in the clash, Ikika pops the boost and is literal milliseconds away from landing the final blow, when suddenly a massive rogue energy beam strikes the arena, causing a massive AoE explosion. Instantly, the server alarms start blaring, and Maya announces over the PA that an unknown hacker just bypassed the academy's firewall. Chifuyu immediately pauses the tournament and commands all players to log out, instantly turning the spectator stands into a massive panic lobby. Rin quickly tells a totally confused Ikika that they've been breached and orders him to return to base. But when Bro tries to act like an anime protagonist and stay to fight, she savagely reminds him he's a useless bot who will only feed the enemy kills. However, Bro's spider sense tingles and he detects a massive laser locking onto Rin, shoving her out of the hitbox at the last possible frame, noting this beam's damage output is way higher than Cecilia's. As he grabs Rin and boosts away, the rogue player spams another laser before stepping out of the flames, radiating massive negative aura across the entire map. Ikika yells at the griefer to identify themselves, but they hit him with the silent treatment. Maya then jumps on comms screaming for them to evacuate because the admin team is en route to ban the intruder. But Bro hits her with the heroic refusal, claiming there are still low-level NPCs in the crossfire, before asking Rin if she's down for a co-op boss fight. She hits him with the born-ready dialogue, and as the boss charges them, they both effortlessly iframe through its attacks. Rin commands Ikika to play the frontline tank since he's running a melee build, and he accepts the role. As he dives into the danger zone, Maya starts stressing over his HP, but Chifuyu tells her to stop tweaking and drink some tea. But the plot twist drops when she accidentally puts salt in her tea instead of sugar, exposing that she's actually secretly panicking over her brother's survival. Meanwhile, Cecilia begs Chifuyu for permission to join the raid, but Chifuyu shuts her down, pointing out that the server's lockdown protocol is fully active. Cecilia theorizes the hacker triggered it intentionally to split the party, and Chifuyu confirms that's a high IQ read. Panicking, Cecilia demands they call the global admins, but Chifuyu casually mentions the senior IT nerds are already trying to brute force the system. She then brutally reminds Cecilia she's not allowed in the rescue squad because her loadout is strictly meant for solo carrying against mobs, meaning she's absolute garbage at team synergy. When Cecilia tries to argue back, Chifuyu hits her with the ultimate logic bomb and completely mutes her. Back in the arena, Ikika and Rin are still trying to DPS the boss. But when Rin starts taking too much aggro, Ikika drops a toxic joke telling her to run away, which ironically buffs her motivation. He then promises to cover her 6, making her blush mid-combat, but the rom-com moment is instantly ruined by a massive laser that nearly sends them both to the spectator screen. The boss then starts spamming an endless barrage of projectiles, but Ikika dodges all of them and realizes the enemy's movement tech is way too stiff, leading him to theorize there's no actual player in the suit, and it's just an AI bot. Rin immediately calls Cap, stating mechas physically require a human pilot, but Ikika gets hyped because fighting a bot means he doesn't have to worry about catching a murder charge. He explains he's been permanently nerfing himself because his weapon does too much damage, but against an empty shell, he can finally go full try-hard. Even though she thinks his theory is pure cope, Rin agrees to play along, and Ikika tells her to hold her ultimate until he gives the exact ping. As he preps his engage, Haoki suddenly hops on open mic, screaming at him to pack this boss up or else he'll forever be known as a massive fraud. The boss instantly switches aggro to Haoki, so Ikika frantically pings Rin to fire her laser directly at his own back. Totally confused by the friendly fire request, she shoots anyway, and the raw energy actually overcharges Ikika's weapon, giving him that massive Super Saiyan aura buff. Fully powered up, he rushes in for the heavy strike, but the bot effortlessly sidesteps his slow attack and violently punts him straight into the wall. The boss then casually walks towards Rin for the execution, but Rin hits a devious smirk because she knows Cecilia is already camping the angle. Cecilia deploys her funnels to break the boss's ankles, then fires a massive critical laser that absolutely deletes its HP bar. After the fight, Ikika heavily glazes Cecilia for the clutch save, which actually short-circuits her brain and makes her incredibly awkward. But plot twist, the boss enters its second phase and tries to fire one final desperate shot at Ikika, and Bro tries to tank it head-on, only for the screen to cut to black, and the next thing he knows, he's waking up in the hospital lobby, with Rin hovering right next to him. She leans in to secure the forbidden kiss, but Bro's anti-Riz instincts kick in and he suddenly jolts awake, making her violently recoil back. He immediately skips the romance and demands the post-match stats on the boss, so she tells him the bot completely disconnected after firing its final ultimate. This suddenly makes him remember a childhood side quest where she promised to level up her cooking stats so he could taste test everything, so he dense-headedly asks if there was some hidden lore behind that offer. Rin frantically starts tweaking and denies it, capping that she just wanted him to farm her culinary exp. So Ikika says he misses her dad's legendary food drops and wants to visit their spot again. But she hits him with the darkest lore drop yet, revealing the server for that restaurant is permanently shut down because her parents actually signed the divorce papers. Hearing this tragic backstory, Ikika suddenly asks if she wants to go out on a co-op date with him, making her absolutely light up like a legendary drop. But suddenly, Cecilia aggressively barges into the lobby to ruin the vibe, starting a massive verbal 1v1 with Rin right, before Haoki also joins the voice chat to call her a straight-up stream sniper for trying to secure his Riz behind their backs. As the top-tier wafers start violently yapping, Ikika ignores the harem and asks where his sister went, but the girls have zero clue about her map location. In reality, the head admin is down in the dev lab with Maya, running deep diagnostic scans on the hacker's mech, only to discover that not only was this thing a literal AI bot, but its source code doesn't match a single registry in the global database. Fast forward to the weekend, and Ikika is safely in his room grinding ranked lobbies with his bro Dan, who aggressively interrogates him on whether he's got any goth baddies sliding on his joystick since he's stuck in an all-girls server. Ikika hits back saying he's still a maidenless NPC just like him, but admits he's actually hyped Rin transferred to the academy because he finally has a duo partner to yap with. Right on cue, Dan's certified smoking hot older sister, Ran, literally breaches and clears the door to call them for food, only to completely freeze when she spots Ikika in the lobby. She frantically tries to fix her unequipped armor and says a nervous hi, but Dan hits her with the toxic brother debuff and tells her to stop acting like a bot and knock first. This causes her to completely crash out because he didn't give her a heads up they had a guest in the party, and watching Dan literally sweat for his life makes Ikika wonder if his bro takes daily domestic abuse damage. Later on, as Ikika logs into the dining room for lunch, Ran starts acting incredibly shy around him, and bro's singular brain cell notices she completely swapped her skins. When he dense-headedly asks if she's queuing up for a date, she quickly spams no in the chat, prompting Dan to roast him for being completely blind to her massive simp energy, leaving our dense MC totally confused. Later that night back at base camp, Maya suddenly spawns in the dorm to announce that Haoki is being forcefully relocated to a different spawn point. When Haoki tries to appeal the ban, Maya explains the server rules strictly prohibit male and female avatars from sharing a room long-term, which completely shatters Haoki's secret hopes of getting some late-night co-op action from Ikika. However, when our brain-dead MC completely fails the QuickTime event and acts like an oblivious NPC, she rage quits the room instantly, leaving him wondering what dialogue option he picked wrong. After a short cooldown period, she loads back into his room looking ridiculously shy, and Ikika asks if she forgot her loot. Instead, she drops a massive side quest, declaring that a server-wide PvP tournament is coming up, and if she secures the victory royale, she expects him to take her on an exclusive date. Unbeknownst to this Tsundia, the class's stealthy stream snipers overhear this entire exchange and instantly leak a massive rumor to the group chat that whoever wins the bracket gets exclusive rights to bounce on Ikika's joystick. The next morning when Ikika loads into class, the entire female lobby is aggressively tracking him like top-tier loot, but Chifuyu immediately kicks the door open to start the tutorial. Maya then introduces the newest transfer player, who miraculously turns out to be another dude named Charles, who just fast-traveled all the way from the France server. The entire class of thirsty baddies instantly starts cheering, because they just realized the server's sausage population magically doubled. But Chifuyu hits them with the absolute silence command, telling them to stop acting down horrendous and equip their armor for the training arc. The second Charles walks over, Ikika grabs his hand and tactical sprints out the door, but they instantly get swarmed by an aggro mob of girls, forcing them to parkour away and camp inside the changing room. Once they're safe in the safe zone, Ikika suggests they swap into their gym skins, but Charles suddenly gets ridiculously shy and begs him to look at the wall, which triggers Ikika's sus radar. He then notices Charles is rocking a ridiculously premium suit, and the newbie flexes that his dad is actually the CEO of Dunois, a massive pay-to-win corporation in France. Ikika notes that Charles gives off massive trust fund baby aura, which weirdly inflicts a random sadness debuff on him for some reason. After they successfully extract back to the outdoor arena, Chifuyu commands Rin and Cecilia to step up for a live PvP demo, since they actually own premium custom loadouts. At first, both baddies complain about the sweat fest, but when Chifuyu whispers that this is their chance to maximize their Riz on Ikika, they instantly lock in and promise to pop off. They both assume they're just gonna 1v1 each other on Rust, but Chifuyu brutally reveals they've queued up against a secret boss. Right on cue, Maya drops out of the sky in full combat gear and absolutely meteor strikes directly on top of Ikika. Bro miraculously survives, but somehow ends up pinning her to the ground with his hand aggressively gripping one of her massive watermelons, and instead of calling the admins, she literally tells him to grab the other one too. Witnessing this absolute heresy, both Cecilia and Rin completely crash out and start spamming lasers at him, but Maya effortlessly parries their shots with her sidearm before Chifuyu drops the law that Maya is a retired global champion who is about to pack them both up in under a minute. The second the countdown hits 0, they all launch into the skybox and start sweating like absolute tryhards. Down below, Chifuyu quizzes Charles on Maya's build, and he accurately drops the stats, stating she's running the Dunois company's Raffle Revive, which is basically the most meta, best-selling unit on the market that can seamlessly hot-swap between sniper, melee, and tank modes. Literally seconds later, Maya flexes her massive skill gap by absolutely deleting both of their HP bars and forcing them to crash land back into the dirt. But instead of saying GG, the two absolute losers immediately start flaming each other in the text chat for throwing the match. Following that massive reality check, Chifuyu commands the lobby to put some respect on Maya's name before forcing everyone to split into co-op squads. Because players with premium skins are automatically assigned the squad leader role, a massive horde of simps tries to join Ikika's party, triggering Haoki's massive jealousy debuff once again. At the exact same time, another mob forms around the new guy Charles, and Ikika realizes both of them are completely cooked by the sheer volume of thirsty NPCs. Ikika randomly selects a low-level girl named Kyoka to boost first, and after helping her calibrate her controls, he tells the next player in the queue to step up. It turns out to be Haoki, but because her massive plot armor is way too huge for the cockpit's default hitbox, Maya instructs Ikika to physically pick her up and force her into the seat. Without a second thought, he equips his own mech suit and violently lifts her into the rig, making Haoki blush so hard you'd think she was about to get permanently banned. While she's getting mounted in the seat, she smoothly asks if his lunch schedule is clear, and when he confirms, she quickly invites him to a private duo lobby for food. Ikika accepts the invite, which gives her a massive serotonin buff, but her master plan is instantly griefed when Rin and Cecilia aggressively spawn camp their table and sit down too. Watching this toxic four-way tension unfold, Charles sits there sweating, wondering if joining this cursed Discord call was a massive mistake, but Ikika assures him it's just standard server behavior. Moving on to the food review, Cecilia forces Ikika to beta test her homemade sandwiches, and the second he takes a bite, Bro instantly realizes why the British had to conquer the globe for spices, because her cooking is literally a biohazard. He then switches to Haoki's premium loot box and absolutely devours her gourmet cooking, instantly triggering massive jealousy alarms from Cecilia and Rin. Ikika even offers to hand-feed Haoki a bite, and taking food directly from his inventory makes her heart rate spike to dangerous levels. Seeing the other two girls ready to crash out from FOMO, Charles plays the diplomat and suggests a massive loot-sharing event to stop World War III from breaking out at the lunch table. After the chaos, the Bros extract back to their spawn room, where Charles discovers Ikika runs a post-school training grind, so he decides to join the party. The very next day, Maya drops yet another patch note by introducing a brand new transfer player to the class. This time it's a hardcore military-spec goth baddie named Laura who just spawned in from the Germany server. Without even waiting for the dialogue options, Laura walks straight up to Ikika and absolutely slaps the taste out of his mouth, loudly declaring she will never accept a complete bot like him as Chifuyu's legendary bloodline. Later at the training grounds, the unholy trinity of Haoki, Cecilia, and Rin all show up and start aggressively yapping until Ikika hits them with the mute all command. Shortly after, Charles logs into the session, and Ikika is genuinely hyped to finally spar against someone who doesn't have the mental processing power of a broken toaster. The boys immediately queue up for a 1v1, and with the entire lobby spectating, Ikika gets absolutely dog-walked and packed up by the French newbie. After the flawless victory, Charles drops some heavy coaching, explaining that Ikika's range stats are complete garbage, and his build completely lacks an equalizer because all his mana is routed to his one-off ultimate. When Bro asks what the hell that even means, Charles explains it's a hidden passive ability that only unlocks when the player's synergy with their mech hits maximum capacity. When Ikika glazes Charles for actually translating the dev notes into simple English, the harem girls angrily watch from the sidelines because he never absorbed a single piece of info from their toxic tutorials. Ikika then complains that his ultimate attack literally griefs his own shield bar, so Charles forces him to equip a sniper rifle and camp the backline for aim training. As Charles gets behind him to physically adjust his posture, the girls immediately detect the massive fruity aura radiating from the boys and start aggressively mouthing. Thanks to Charles's actual W coaching, Ikika's headshot accuracy levels up insanely fast. But right before he can emote, his attention is caught by a hyper-premium, terrifyingly advanced mech, which belongs to the new menace, Laura. She instantly challenges Ikika to a 1v1 deathmatch, but he tells her to touch grass and wait for the official tournament brackets to drop. Instead of respecting the rules, Laura acts like a total griefer and fires a lethal cheap shot while his back is turned. But clutching up at the last frame, Charles dashes in and face-tanks the laser to save him. This instantly spikes the lobby tension to maximum, because you now have the French and German players pointing guns at each other. But before the server could literally recreate World War II, the instructors intervene and forcibly pause the match. The moment the German menace logs off, Haoki and the squad interrogate Ikika, aggressively demanding to know why Laura is tracking his IP like a psychotic ex-girlfriend. He completely ignores their yapping and extracts to the locker room, where Charles checks his HP bar to see if he's okay. After confirming he's good, Charles says he's heading back to the dorms, but Ikika calls him out for never taking a shower at the gym. He even tries to peer pressure Charles into unequipping his armor right there so they can aggressively compare their joystick stats like true bros. But Charles instantly starts panicking, blushing furiously, and literally tactical sprints out of the room, leaving Ikika confused. Later, as Ikika is walking back to the spawn point, he mentally replays Laura slapping him and wonders what massive dialogue tree he failed to deserve that. Suddenly, his radar picks up Laura screaming at Chifuyu, so he hits the crouch button and stealthily camps behind a tree to stream snipe their argument. He overhears Laura aggressively demanding to know why the legendary Chifuyu downgraded to this eastern server, begging her to fast travel back to Germany to train the elite tryhards. Chifuyu drops a cold reality check, saying she has admin duties here, but Laura arrogantly claims this low-tier academy doesn't deserve her. However, Chifuyu instantly shuts down her massive ego and tells her to get off her high horse, causing the goth baddie to violently rage-quit the area. Without even turning around, Chifuyu tells Ikika to stop camping in the bushes like a complete wuss, casually adding that he needs to grind his stats if he doesn't want his cheeks violently clapped in the upcoming tournament. As she walks away, Bro finally asks the heavy law question: does Laura hate his guts because he's the reason Chifuyu failed to secure her back-to-back global championship? Chifuyu tells him to stop living in the past, but the flashback cutscene triggers anyway, revealing that during the finals of the World Championship, Ikika got straight-up kidnapped by a rival guild. While he was locked in the gulag, Chifuyu literally abandoned the grand finals and flew across the map to solo raid the base and save him. Because she went AFK, she forfeited the global title, which caused massive server drama since she was guaranteed to take the #1 spot if she had played. It turns out the German military leaked the hacker's IP address to her, so Chifuyu transferred to their region to act as a free coach to pay off her massive debt. Ever since that patch dropped, Ikika carries massive guilt for griefing his sister's legendary run and is desperately trying to buff his stats to match hers. Fast forward to his dorm room, he hears Charles taking a shower and casually breaches the bathroom to toss him the premium body wash. However, the moment he opens the door, his eyes render the fact that Charles is entirely missing his joystick and is actually packing a premium beef jerky, so bro tries to play it off like an absolute Sigma male, keeping his poker face completely frozen as he silently walks out. Meanwhile, behind the glass, Charles is literally frozen in shock, her heart rate hitting maximum RPM, realizing her stealth mission has been completely compromised. Once she finally unequips her towel and sits nervously on her bed, Ikika tries to act normal and offers her a cup of tea to reset the vibe. But the moment their hitboxes collide, she violently panics, causing Ikika to spill boiling water and take massive fire damage to his hand. He tactical sprints to the sink to cleanse the debuff, and Charles rushes up behind him to apologize, completely unaware that she is aggressively pressing her massive hidden melons directly into his arm hitbox. After she finally realizes the spatial awareness error and backs off, they sit down for the heavy exposition drop, and Ikika demands she leak her entire character backstory. She reveals she was actually a secret spawn from her dad's side quest mistress, living completely isolated from the main family tree. After her mom got deleted from the server, her dad's corporate goons swooped in, ran her stats, and realized she had god-tier compatibility with the mech suits. Overnight, she was forced to become a beta tester for her dad's sweaty corporation, but drops the law that the company is currently going bankrupt because they're stuck producing laggy Generation 2 garbage, while the meta has completely shifted to Gen 3. Since her dad's corp is literally hard stuck in the previous meta, he forced Charles to equip a male skin and infiltrate this server just to stream snipe Ikika's telemetry data. After leaking the truth, Charles drops the massive guilt debuff and apologizes for capping this whole time. But instead of getting mad, Ikika absolutely crashes out on her behalf, stating that parents shouldn't be allowed to treat their kids like disposable NPC pawns. He then drops some heavy lore, admitting his own parents abandoned him and his sister, so he has zero interest in ever visiting their spawn point again. When he asks what her next move is, she admits she's probably getting permanently deported back to the France server now that her cover is blown. However, Ikika tells her to cancel the fast travel and stay right here, promising to keep her account strictly confidential so she doesn't have to deal with that toxic household. He literally pulls out the Academy's terms of service and reads a loophole that grants active players complete immunity from outside factions, meaning they have a solid 3-year grind to figure out a permanent patch for her problem. Hearing this absolute W play, Charles drops a massive smile and thanks him, but Ikika's singular brain cell immediately short-circuits when he accidentally stares at her massive hidden plot armor. Catching him tweaking in 4K, she boldly asks if he wants to unlock the premium, uncensored view. But right before the scene gets age-restricted, Cecilia aggressively spams the door knocker, completely ruining the vibe. Ikika frantically shoves Charles under the covers right as the British baddie breaches the room, angrily reminding him they were supposed to queue up for dinner together. She forcefully drags him to the cafeteria, where they accidentally run into Hauki, who absolutely loses her mind at the sight of them duo queuing. Instantly catching the jealousy debuff, Hauki latches onto his other arm and loudly declares she's crashing their dinner party too. Fast forward a bit, and Ikika safely extracts back to his dorm with some extra loot for Charles. But she is heavily struggling with the chopsticks because her region-locked hands aren't calibrated for Japanese servers. Bro offers to fetch her a fork, but when she stubbornly refuses, he tells her to just let him carry her for once. Taking the bait, she shyly asks if he can physically hand-feed her the HP items, and even though Ikika is sweating bullets, he actually accepts the quest. Surprisingly, the awkwardness quickly despawns, and they actually end up having a ridiculously wholesome co-op moment. Meanwhile, Laura is out here edge-walking in the moonlight, swearing a blood oath to become exactly like Chifuyu and permanently delete Ikika from the server, solely because he ruined her idol's perfect win streak. The very next morning, the local gossip squad leaks the massive rumor to Cecilia and Rin, explaining that whoever secures the victory royale in the upcoming tournament gets to officially date Ikika. When Cecilia asks if Bro even consented to this prize pool, they confirm he is completely oblivious because it's a server-wide secret. Just then, Charles slides into the voice channel to ask what they're yapping about, but the entire squad immediately logs off and scatters, leaving her totally confused. After the tutorial phase, Haoki is absolutely mouthing over how her private dialogue option leaked to the global chat, but she copes by telling herself it won't matter as long as she absolutely sweats and takes first place. This triggers a massive flashback cutscene where Haoki remembers her hardcore kendo grind from years ago. Right before her older sister literally broke the world meta by inventing the infinite Stratos mechs. Because this god-tier tech completely shattered the global power balance, her family's IP address got heavily targeted, forcing them to constantly swap servers just to survive. Before she could even process the law drop, she was forcibly separated from her parents and put under 24/7 government surveillance, which hit her with a massive depression debuff. The only thing keeping her from completely crashing out was her kendo practice, which became her ultimate hyperfixation. But she ended up getting way too toxic with it, violently beating a sparring partner until they literally rage quit in tears, leaving Haoki deeply disgusted with her own lack of self-control. Cut back to present day, and she's currently battling that exact same mental nerf, terrified of abusing her overpowered stats to win the tournament. Meanwhile, Cecilia and Rin spawn into the training arena and instantly start flaming each other in proximity chat. Rin decides enough is enough and challenges her to a 1v1 deathmatch, and the British baddie eagerly accepts the duel. The second they equip their mechs and dash at each other, they get completely third-partied by the German menace, Laura. When Rin asks if her CPU is malfunctioning, Laura brutally roasts their garbage loadouts, claiming their regions must be completely devoid of skill if they're still rocking those outdated Generation 2 skins. This massive disrespect completely tilts both of them, so Laura doubles down, telling the thirsty hoes to 2v1 her right now since she refuses to lose to simps fighting over a lazy bot like Ikika. The rage bait works flawlessly, causing both girls to aggressively W-key straight toward her. At that exact moment, Ikika and Charles are strolling to the arena for some aim training, only to see the entire lobby panicking over the fact that the 3 national VIPs are currently tearing up the map. Rushing to the spectator balcony alongside Haoki, they watch in absolute shock as Laura effortlessly dog-walks both Cecilia and Rin at the same time. Rin tries to clutch up by blasting a massive energy beam, but Laura's mech literally just eats the damage like it's nothing. Seeing Ikika absolutely flabbergasted, Charles drops the dev notes, explaining Laura's premium suit comes with a busted passive called the Active Inertial Canceller, which literally nullifies all incoming hitboxes. As the beatdown continues, Rin is getting absolutely styled on, and even with Cecilia jumping in to peel for her, neither of them can match Laura's broken movement speed. Laura violently spikes them back to the dirt, but right before she can secure the execution, Cecilia panic fires a point-blank missile directly into her face, catching her completely off guard. The explosion gives them a microsecond to breathe, but when the smoke clears, Laura is standing there with 0 HP lost, and immediately deploys a mechanical tether to strangle the life out of both of them. She proceeds to dish out the ultimate 90s housewife beatdown, and Charles points out that their shield bars are flashing critical red. Haoki notes that if those shields break, they're going to catch a permanent ban from reality. And watching this one-sided slaughter gives Haoki serious PTSD from her toxic kendo days. On the flip side, Ikika's single brain cell finally fires, realizing Laura is deliberately griefing the lobby just to bait his aggro. Refusing to let his harem get packed up, he instantly spawns his suit and shatters the arena barrier to join the fray. But the second he dashes in, Laura pops her crowd control ability, literally freezing him in place right as Cecilia and Rin's controllers disconnect from zero energy. With the side characters finally muted, Laura locks her crosshairs directly onto Ikika, dropping an edgy monologue about how having emotions is a massive skill issue before shoving her cannon in his face. Luckily, Charles pulls off a clutch flank and spams suppressing fire, giving Ikika just enough frames to grab the 2 down baddies and tactical retreat. While booking it, he literally prays to his mech's RNG to let him pop Ignition Boost one more time, and miraculously the cheat code activates, leaving Laura absolutely stunned. Charles keeps laying down heavy fire while Haoki is forced to spectate from the sidelines, internally mouthing that she doesn't have her own premium skin to join the raid. Eventually, even Charles starts getting overwhelmed by Laura's raw stats, but right before she gets sent to the gulag, Chifuyu teleport strikes into the arena and tells Laura to stand down. Laura immediately halts the assault, and Chifuyu forces them to save the toxicity for the official interclass tournament brackets. With that, she slaps a global ban on all unauthorized PvP and tells them to log off. Later that evening, Cecilia and Rin are recovering in the med bay, heavily coping and complaining to Ikika that he totally ruined their 1v1 because they were totally about to make a comeback. But Charles slides in with the healing tease and tells them to wake up to reality, brutally pointing out that Laura was milliseconds away from turning them into a bloody pancake. When Ikika innocently asks what even started the beef, both girls get super evasive, too embarrassed to admit Laura verbally decimated their pride. Charles instantly connects the dots, realizing Laura must have dropped some heavy trash talk about Ikika, but before she can leak the logs, the girls aggressively shush her. Bro tells them to stop tweaking and stay in bed since they're heavily debuffed, but they just call him a dense idiot, leaving him completely lost in the sauce. Suddenly, a massive mob of female NPCs breaches the room to drop the latest patch notes. The upcoming battles are strictly a duos playlist, meaning everyone needs a co-op partner. The entire horde immediately begs him for a party invite, but Bro hits them with the hard reject, announcing he's already locked in with Charles, which makes the whole mob rage quit the room. Afterward, both Cecilia and Rin desperately try to queue up with him, but Maya walks in and drops the ban hammer, stating their mechs took way too much structural damage and are completely locked out of the event. Since the grand prize is a guaranteed date with our oblivious MC, the girls actually start cheering for Charles to win, entirely because they still think she's a dude. Walking back to the spawn point, Charles heavily glazes Ikika for picking her, and he smoothly replies he did it to protect her stealth build, which gives her a massive happiness buff. Back at the dorm, Charles offers to act more like a standard waifu when the cameras are off, but Ikika drops unexpected Riz, saying she doesn't need to change because her tomboy aesthetic is actually top tier. He then tries to step outside so she can unequip her gear, but she casually mentions she literally wouldn't mind if he stayed to inspect the plot. Trying to keep it family-friendly, Ikika suggests they just face opposite walls to swap skins, but mid-change, Charles completely fumbles her movement keys, trips, and accidentally gets a wide-angle, uncensored view of Bro's bare cakes. Absolute panic ensues, but when Ikika turns around to help her up, his physics engine glitches too, causing him to faceplant directly into her foot, which instantly knocks him out cold. She drags his unconscious body to the bed, remembering his vow to guard her secret, and plants a soft kiss on his forehead as a massive thank you buff. A few days later, the tournament finally goes live, and as Charles and Ikika check their loadouts, they notice the VIP spectator boxes are absolutely packed with server admins and high-level devs. Charles catches Ikika hard focusing on Laura's icon instead of prepping, so she forcefully tells him to lock in. Right on cue, the matchmaking algorithm drops the bracket. The very first round is Ikika and Charles queued up against the nightmare duo of Laura and Haoki. Stepping into the arena, the tension is thick enough to cut with a katana, and Ikika is visibly sweating to humble the German menace right out of the gate. As the pre-game timer ticks down, the whole lobby holds its breath, and the second it hits 0, Ikika pops his dash and recklessly W keys straight toward her. But history literally repeats itself as she immediately spams her broken crowd control skill, freezing his hitbox in midair. And Cecilia violently flames him from the stands for falling for the exact same trap. Just as Laura readies her execution shot, Charles slides in with the heavy cover fire, forcing the goth baddie to cancel her animation and back off. Haoki then tries to push Charles for a close-range melee exchange, but Charles strategically super jumps out of the way, tagging Ikika in so the two sword mains can clash. But Laura isn't having it. She violently yanks Haoki back and throws her into the dirt, aggressively claiming she wants to solo squad wipe both Ikika and Charles by herself. Despite getting griefed by her own teammate, Haoki recovers and pushes forward again, which immediately paints a massive target on her back for Charles. Up in the admin room, Chifuyu instantly reads the play. They're focusing the low-level player to force a 2v1. Knowing Laura's kit is strictly designed for 1v1s and absolutely sucks against multiple targets. Right on schedule, Charles lands a clean volley on Haoki, completely deleting her shield bar and permanently sending her back to the lobby. Now that it's a 2v1, the boys coordinate their aggro on Laura, and the moment Ikika rushes in, he purposefully gets hit by her freeze stun again. But this was a massive bait, leaving her wide open to catch a heavy sniper round from Charles, forcing her to rapidly disengage. Having downloaded her attack patterns, Ikika triumphantly announces the massive nerf to her crowd control. She can only freeze a target if her camera is completely hard-locked onto them. Capitalizing on this huge lore drop, Ikika pushes her again, but his energy meter hits 0 at the absolute worst possible frame. Laura instantly counters and spikes him into the ground, but Charles is still sweating and keeps the pressure on. Pulling off a top-tier movement play, Charles unpredictably activates Ignition Boost, leaving Laura completely shook because she didn't know the French newbie had that tech unlocked. Suddenly, Ikika clutches up from the floor, grabbing Charles's dropped rifle and spamming shots to draw Laura's aggro, creating the perfect window for Charles to fly in and deliver a devastating strike that shatters Laura's shield bar entirely. Following up the combo, Charles lands a brutal right hook to her face, which hits so hard it literally forces Laura's brain to load a massive tragic flashback from her early military days. Back then, she was grinding insanely hard to be the absolute apex predator of the army, but when the mecha meta dropped, the scientists forcefully implanted experimental nanomachines into her eye just to optimize her reaction times. Unfortunately, her hardware rejected the install, and the brass officially labeled her a defective product. That is, until Chifuyu spawned in and personally coached her, until she became the most feared player on the server. Laura literally worshipped Chifuyu like an untouchable raid boss, so when she discovered that Ikika was the reason her idol's flawless run got ruined, her hatred for him reached toxic levels. Snapping back to reality and drowning in pure rage, she starts screaming at her mech to bypass its limiters, causing the suit's code to violently corrupt and physically mutate around her body. Chifuyu instantly hits the panic button, declaring a level D server emergency, while Maya forces a global cancellation of all tournament matches. In seconds, Laura's mech transforms into a nightmare-fuel titan that perfectly mimics Chifuyu's aesthetic, and it literally one-shots Ikika out of his armor with a single, devastating swing. As he free falls, he realizes this mutated boss is using his sister's exact combat animations, but right before he hits the ground and takes fatal fall damage, Haoki swoops in at the last possible frame to catch him. As soon as Bro tries to forcefully eject her from his lap, she delivers a quick-time event slap to his face and tells him to stop tweaking and lock in. That smack actually reboots his system, making him remember a cutscene with Chifuyu about how true warriors don't let others farm their XP for them. Even though Haoki points out his shield bar is literally at 0, Charles plugs her proprietary cable into his device and transfers some of her own battery life to his unit. While Chifuyu commands the other admins to let the noob cook solo, Ikika managed to partially manifest his right arm and legendary sword to stay in the game. Haoki begs him not to log out of life, but he hits her with the main character energy and tells her to trust the process. With one final W key dash, he slices through the corrupted armor and catches the unconscious Laura right before she hits the ground. Later, she has a fever dream of Ikika, promising to protect her from the toxic lobby and carry her to the higher ranks. When she finally spawns back in, she finds herself in the med bay with the head admin Chifuyu watching over her. Chifuyu leaks the lore that Laura's suit had an illegal Valkyrie mod installed, a banned cheat code that overrides the pilot's brain and turns them into a total aimbot. Before she can even process the report, Chifuyu hits her with a reality check stating she'll never reach her level and exits the room, leaving her crying like a massive L-taker. That night, while Ikika is refueling with Charles, he hears that the tournament devs officially cancelled the event due to the hacking. He spots Haoki staring at him with pure despair because her one chance to secure a date with him just got patched out. But Ikika pulls a pro-gamer move and promises her the date anyway, so she responds by punching the air out of his lungs like a true tsundere. Suddenly, Maya spawns in to announce that a new co-ed bathhouse just opened up in the academy for some reason. Ikika rushes in to clear his stress, but Charles walks in with only a towel, making Bro's internal fans start spinning at max speed. Nicer. Seeing him start to tweak, Charles offers to leave, but Ikika insists that he should be the one to retreat from the line of fire. However, she stops him and says they need to have a serious voice chat, forcing him to stay in the water. They sit back to back, and Charles grabs his hand, admitting she's decided to stay on this server solely because of his W Riz. She then presses her massive plot armor directly against his back and asks him to call her Charlotte, since that's her original character name before the undercover mission. At this point, both of them are blushing like crazy, and Ikika agrees to use her real ID from now on. The next day, Maya officially reveals Charlotte's true form to the class, and the whole school finds out she's actually a top-tier baddie. Once Rin hears the news, she crashes into the classroom in full battle rattle, looking ready to delete Ikika from the mainframe. Surprisingly, Laura spawns in to tank the aggro for him before turning around and locking lips with him in front of the whole lobby. She declares that she's officially making Ikika her personal housewife, leaving everyone in the chat absolutely stunned. That night, Haoki's sister Tanabe, the original dev of the game, calls her up and starts yapping at 100 miles per hour. Before Haoki can even get a word in, Tanabe reveals she already prepared a mythic tier custom unit for her to help her keep up with the meta. The following morning, Ikika wakes up feeling like his hitbox has doubled in size. As he peels back the blanket, he finds Laura sleeping right next to him in her unplotted, uncensored mode. While he starts screaming, Laura just wakes up and casually exposes her entire inventory for him to see. He tells her to stop acting like a total weirdo, but she says since he's her husband, she's sharing all her secret files with him. While Ikika is busy tweaking, she puts him in a literal armbar and tells him they're starting a training arc so he can stop being a pathetic noob. Right then, Haoki walks in to ask him to spar. But after catching them in bed together, she unleashes a divine banhammer on both of them for their sins. Later, while riding the bus with Charlotte, she asks about their destination, and he says they're going to buy gear for the beach day event. She's totally let down because she thought they were on a secret duo date, so she tells him an idiot like him deserves to get kicked by a horse and catch an instant game over. But Ikika's Riz is so low he doesn't even catch the drift, disappointing her even more than a laggy server. When they reach the mall, Charlotte starts avoiding him, so he asks what it'll take to fix the reputation points. She tells him he has to hold her hand the whole time. Even then, this absolute bot assumes it's just so she doesn't get lost, making Charlotte realize this guy couldn't riz up a girl if she fell directly onto his joystick. Unbeknownst to them, Rin and Cecilia are camping nearby and feel a massive spike in sodium levels seeing them holding hands. As they vow to put Ikika's hardware through a shredder, Laura suddenly spawns in behind them. She says she's not there for a PvP fight and just wants to track her beloved. The girls invite her to join their recon squad to gather more intel on Charlotte's suspicious activity. Laura thinks this side quest is interesting and tags along, and as they follow, Ikika stops to tell Charlotte that since everyone knows her real name, he's giving her the nickname Charles just to keep it exclusive. Her mood instantly hits max capacity because she thinks being nicknamed means she's the legendary chosen one in his party. As they keep walking, Ikika spots a jewelry store and tells her to scout the next shop alone while he handles some important business. Meanwhile, Dan is in the area helping his sister Ran, who is out here buying every sussy swimsuit possible for her OnlyFans grind. Ikika pops up to say hi, causing her to panic and literally kick Dan into the stratosphere before he can leak the lore. She starts acting all soft around him and mentions she's transferring to his academy next year to join the server. After Ikika wishes her luck on the entrance exams, she gets flustered and goes to look for Dan's respawn point. Right then, Charles swoops in and drags Ikika into a changing room, saying she wants to show him her new beach skin. At the same time, the spy girls enter the shop, and Laura gets distracted by a swimsuit that gives off major pirate vibes. Charles sees the rival squad and decides to drop her plot armor to prevent Ikika from leaving the room and getting caught. However, Ikika is so virgin-coded he starts solving complex calculus in his head just to stop himself from looking at the forbidden loot. Once she's done, she asks him to turn around, and he sees a sight that will stay in his search history forever. As he panics, someone from outside slides the curtain back, revealing herself to be Chifuyu. Maya ends up giving them a lecture on healthy boundaries, while Rin and Cecilia decide to stop their stream sniping. Meanwhile, Laura can't find a suit that fits her vibe, so she literally calls the German High Command for a tactical swimsuit strategy. In response, the leader of the Black Rabbits gives her a 4K breakdown on which armor will increase her chances of successfully mating with the MC. A few days later, the whole lobby arrives at the beach, and Rin immediately hops on Ikika's back to claim her territory. Just then, Cecilia pulls up and tells him to rub sunscreen on her back like he promised. Ikika agrees, but he gets ridiculously nervous as Cecilia starts making noises, which makes his soldier start to stand at attention. Before things get too heated, Rin goes for the tickle attack, making Cecilia jump up and forget she's basically showing off the goods. In a total panic, she decks our MC, sending him flying into the ocean where Rin decides it's the perfect time for a race. But her leg says not today, and she starts to drown, forcing Ikika to swoop in for a classic hero rescue. Once they hit the shore, Cecilia gets her friend to help escort Rin back to the hotel so she can have some alone time. After they drag her off, Charles pulls up with a literal mummy wrapped in toilet paper, and Ikika is beyond confused. The mummy stays quiet, but Ikika recognizes the voice instantly. It's Laura, and she's way too shy to show off her new swimsuit. With a little hype from Charles, she finally sheds the paper and shows the MC exactly what she's packing. When he tells her she looks cute, she starts blushing like crazy. Since, believe it or not, that's the first time anyone has ever told her that. The squad invites him to play beach ball, but Laura is still buffering from the compliment and takes a ball straight to the face. When he tries to check on her, she gets flustered and pulls a Recap-Kun exit into the ocean. Just then, Maya arrives with more beach balls, but her massive cannons of mass destruction quickly steal all the attention. Even Ikika starts catching some major Alabama vibes from her. And Charles has to remind him that, yeah, she's actually his big sister. The class spends the day vibing, but by evening, Chifuyu spots Haoki watching the sunset all by herself. She joins her and confirms that Tanabe wasn't the one who sabotaged Laura's unit. She mentions that Tanabe might show up tomorrow, not knowing that a custom unit has already been prepared for Haoki. At dinner, Ikika tries the wasabi and claims it's actually fire. Charles gives it a go and realizes it's bitter as hell, but she swallows it anyway because of a promise to her mom. After he gives her some water, Ikika notices Cecilia acting like she's got a fish between her legs. He tells her to just sit normally so she's actually comfortable. She whispers that she did some unspeakable things just to win this seat next to him. But when the MC leans in, she pulls a total NPC move and says it's nothing. He then sees Haoki across the room giving him the absolute death stare. While he wonders what her problem is, Cecilia starts wiggling around even more. He offers to hand feed her if she's struggling that much. But Charles quickly tries to shut that down. Too late, Cecilia heard everything and excitedly asks him to start the airplane. As they eat, the rest of the harem gets jealous, especially Haoki, who's mad the MC forgot what day it is. Suddenly, Chifuyu barges in and tells everyone to pipe down. When Ikika tells Cecilia the feeding session is over, she starts pouting like a child. To make it up to her, he asks her to come to his room later, making her think she's about to get some back shots. Later, the girls are waiting for the MC when they see Cecilia putting on her freakiest plot cover yet. The girls decide to tease her, and she gets so embarrassed that she bolts out of the room. Outside, she finds the whole main cast with their ears glued to Chifuyu's door. From the outside, it sounds like the siblings are doing way more than just talking. The girls lean in too hard and the wall breaks, revealing Ikika was just giving his sister a massage. Chifuyu makes them all sit down and explain themselves, but they silence Laura before she spills the tea. Chifuyu says the MC has magic hands and even invites the squad to try it out. Cecilia goes first, but while he's working, Chifuyu exposes her freaky outfit to the whole room. After the teasing, Chifuyu sends him to get drinks, and then she gets high on Dr. Pepper, and bluntly asks the girls why they're following Ikika around like loyal NPCs. There's an instruction tile saying to pull them, so he tells her to do it, but she just ignores him and walks off. Cecilia joins him, and as Ikika pulls the handles, a giant carrot-shaped capsule spawns at his feet. He spots some handles buried in the dirt with a sign that says, "Pull me." He asks Haoki for help, but she just blanks him and walks away. Cecilia joins him instead, and when he pulls, a carrot-shaped capsule lands at his feet. Suddenly, the massive carrot capsule pops open and out spawns a hyperactive Tanane, who greets Bro with peak chaotic energy before asking where her little sister Haoki is camping. As soon as Ikika points her out, she hits the turbo button and zooms off to find her, leaving a trail of confusion behind. Cecilia is literally standing there wondering who this unhinged baddie is, and her jaw hits the floor when she learns she's the legendary sister of the Tsundia sword main. Later on, the head admin Chifuyu gathers the whole squad of premium suit owners. Rin is malding because Haoki is there despite being a default skin noob, so Chifuyu prepares a massive lore dump. But hold up, Tanane glides in like a hyping glitch and starts trolling the teacher with her absolute brainrot personality. She immediately tries to grope Haoki's massive plot armor, but gets a savage slap to the face for her devious behavior, which she just laughs off like a weirdo. She finally drops the act and introduces herself as the world's top dev, leaving the girls completely shook in 4K. Then she makes a giant loot crate crash land directly on Ikika's head, revealing Haoki's personal suit, which happens to be the only cracked 4th gen unit on the entire server. She tells Haoki to hop into the cockpit, and the second she's in, the suit auto-calibrates to her thick hitboxes. Once the setup is done, she tells her to take it for a spin and see how the frame rates hold up. As Haoki takes off, the whole lobby is laggy just trying to watch her move because her speed stat is literally off the charts. Then she pulls out 2 massive swords that are so broken they literally delete the clouds just from the air pressure of her swings. Tanane starts spamming missiles at her to test the hitboxes, but Haoki just slices them up with laser beams like a total sweat. Just then, the assistant Maya rushes in with a ping on her tablet. Chifuyu reads the red alert message and cancels the tutorial session immediately because a real boss fight just spawned. Back at the HQ, she reveals the USA server developed a Gen 3 mecha that went full hacker mode, went berserk, and started griefing everyone in sight. It went off radar for a bit, but just got spotted by satellites heading straight for the school's lobby to ruin everyone's day. So now the squad has to neutralize this rogue bot before the server crashes. While the teachers handle the NPC crowds, the ones with personal loadouts are tasked with the actual PvP battle. Ikika is out here sweating like a scared little gooner, while the baddie squad stays calm and asks for the target's stats and weaknesses. Chifuyu shares the dev files but warns them that if they leak these patch notes, they're getting a 2-year ban from society. Turns out the target is a heavy gunner with massive AoE attacks and basically 0 hit lag. Laura asks why they can't just send scouts, but the boss is traveling at supersonic speeds, meaning they can't even lock on yet. This means they only get 1 shot, so Maya suggests sending in the one with the most broken offensive power. That's Ikika's suit, but the girls start roasting him because they know his single-digit IQ is a massive liability in a real fight. Bro tries to decline the mission like a certified coward, but Chifuyu calls him a little wuss, which triggers his ego and makes him accept the quest. Just as they're about to launch, Tanane crawls out of the vents like a total creep and tells them to hold their horses. She starts annoying Chifuyu again before revealing she's got a better strategy that doesn't involve Ikika getting packed up instantly. And it involves using Haoki's new god-tier unit. She takes them outside to show off that Haoki's weapon is basically a cracked version of Chifuyu's old legendary gear, with armor that can be shed for extra speed. She also mentions this feels like the White Knight event from 10 years ago, which makes Ikika's tiny brain curious. Back then, some hackers aimed a bunch of nukes at Japan to delete the whole nation. But just as everyone prepared to take a massive L, a mysterious woman in a white suit spawned in, solo carried the whole country by destroying the missiles, and then vanished like a ninja. Tanane starts glazing Chifuyu, hinting that she was actually that legendary White Knight player. But Chifuyu hits her with a physical mute button because she's not trying to leak her secret identity to the chat. Then she asks the dev how long the setup takes, and Tanane says she'll finish the modding in exactly 7 minutes. Once the suits are ready, Ikika and Haoki head to the shore and summon their mechs one after another. Ikika tries to act like a big man and tells Haoki to be careful since this isn't a training lobby, and she could actually get clipped. Haoki tells him to pipe down because he's the one who's probably gonna need a revive. Chifuyu hops on the comms to remind them they only have 1 frame to take down the boss, Gospel, so Haoki asks for lead attacker perms to support the MC. Chifuyu gives her the W, but tells her not to go full crash-out mode since she's still a low-level pilot. The other girls notice Haoki is being way too sweaty for her first real mission, so Chifuyu starts a private DM with Ikika, telling him to watch over her before she makes a fatal mistake. So Ikika hops on Haoki's back like a literal backpack, and they zoom toward the boss at lag-inducing speeds. They finally spot Gospel on the radar, and Haoki locks on, telling Ikika they're making contact in exactly 10 seconds. Ikika starts charging up his one-off ultimate, but Gospel is using movement hacks and dodges them at the last second. They start an insane dogfight in the sky, while Gospel starts spamming homing missiles at them. But the heroes manage to iframe through the damage just by the skin of their teeth. Ikika and Haoki decide to split up and pincer the boss, coordinating their W keys to rush it down. When they find an opening, Haoki sets up the assist for Ikika, but Bro completely freezes up and doesn't press his attack button, leaving her wide open to catch hands. After barely dodging a game over, she demands to know why he threw the match, and Ikika says he saw an NPC ship below that shouldn't be in a restricted zone. Haoki scans the boat and realizes it's just a bunch of poachers, telling Ikika to ignore the criminals and focus on the raid boss. Ikika refuses to let them get griefed because they're still humans, taking massive damage to his own shield just to protect the randoms. Haoki catches some stray fire because of his stalling and starts flaming him for risking the main quest for some low-life NPCs. But Ikika hits her with a heavy dialogue line, telling her she's acting like a toxic power tripper who forgot what it means to protect the weak. His roast hits her right in the feels, and she gets so embarrassed that her controller literally slips, and she drops her sword into the ocean. Before she can recover her loot, Gospel unloads a full magazine of missiles at her, but Ikika jumps into the hitbox and takes the explosion point blank like a total simp. He loses all his HP and starts falling, and since Haoki's battery is also dead, they both crash land into the water right next to the poachers they just saved. Back at the HQ, Maya says their sensors can't find a heartbeat, but Chifuyu stays stone-faced and says they're not stopping the search until the logs are found. Charles and the baddie squad try to barge in, but she hits them with a temporary ban from the room, making them worry because the teacher looks like she's about to crash out. Turns out Ikika is washed up on the beach looking absolutely cooked, but Chifuyu stays in Sigma mode and tells the server the mission was a total L. The girls are worried the teacher is losing her mind, but Laura points out she's just doing her admin job by focusing on the boss, Gospel, first. Meanwhile, Ikika is in the medbay with a critical HP bar, and Haoki is sitting there blaming her own skill issue for the tragedy. She keeps wondering why Bro risked his life for some toxic criminals, finally admitting that Ikika has that main character will that she completely lacks. She realizes she was just using her suit to flex on people, and her ego is the reason Ikika had to carry so hard. Just then, Maya pulls up and tells her to go touch grass and rest, but when she tries to stay and watch the bed, Maya says it's a direct order from the head admin, so no cap allowed. She finally leaves, but instead of sleeping, she runs to the beach to vent her frustration like a total main character. She gets a flashback of when she was getting griefed by some bratty NPCs for wearing a ribbon, but Ikika stepped in and boxed them all to save her. Even though she flamed him for interfering, he just hit her with that W Riz and told her the ribbon looked fire on her. She tried to stay cold, but before he could log off, she told him he could use her first name, which is how they became a duo. And that's how the ship officially sailed. As she's sulking on the sand, Rin shows up and bluntly tells her that she's the reason Bro is currently in a coma. When Haoki doesn't respond, Rin grabs her by the neck and tells her to stop being a bot and go fix the mess she made. Haoki says she's deleting her mecha account and never piloting again, but Rin smacks the taste out of her mouth and tells her to grow some balls. Haoki cries that they don't even know where the boss is camping, but admits she desperately wants to enter the lobby again. Hearing that, Rin smiles and pings the rest of the squad, signaling that the sword main has finally locked in. The baddie squad promises to duo with her and clean up the mess, which gives her a massive motivation buff. Then Laura uses some illegal German wall hacks to locate Gospel, and they decide to ignore the admin's orders and go on an unsanctioned raid. They find Gospel and Laura tries to snipe it, but the boss's armor is literally built different and takes 0 damage. Back at HQ, Maya tells Chifuyu that the girls are breaking the server rules, but the teacher just says she already saw this coming. Gospel targets Laura and rushes in, but Cecilia pings it with her funnels, though the boss is still using movement scripts and dodging everything. Charles joins the firefight too, but no matter how much they spam their abilities, they can't break through the boss's defensive aura. Meanwhile, Ikika is having a trippy dream where he's in some heavenly lobby and sees a waifu in white. He feels like he's seen her in a previous patch, but his memory files are corrupted. The girl tells him to stop AFKing because his team is getting clapped, and then she vanishes like a ghost. Then he sees the legendary White Knight, who asks if he wants to activate his cheat codes and get power. Ikika says yes, so she asks why a loser like him even needs strength. He says he wants to protect his harem from the toxic lobbies and unnecessary violence. So the girl in white takes his hand and grants him the protagonist power-up to rejoin the fight. Back in reality, the girls are getting their cheeks clapped by the boss. Haoki starts acting like a total Rambo, and Sola rushes the enemy despite her teammates telling her to stop throwing. She somehow manages to dunk Gospel into the water, but the boss enters its second phase and evolves into a literal nightmare that makes them all wet their pants. Gospel blasts Haoki with a lethal energy beam, and as she's falling, Cecilia tries to counterfire, but she gets packed up instantly too. As Haoki lies there waiting for the "You died" screen, she wishes she could see Bro one last time. Out of nowhere, Ikika spawns right in front of her, announcing that his plot armor healed all his wounds and he's ready to clutch. She starts crying with relief, so he pulls a handkerchief out of his inventory and hands it to her like a true gentleman. He then tells her happy birthday and tells her to sit back and watch while he clears the level. She's completely stunned that Bro actually remembered the date despite almost getting his account deleted earlier. As Ikika pulls the aggro, the rest of the squad recovers their energy and rejoin the raid. With Rin and Charles also loading back in, the full party is ready to launch the final counter-offensive against Gospel. Haoki vows to play support, and suddenly her special ability procs, instantly restoring Ikika's shield bar to 100%. Maya notes that Ikika's battery is dying fast, but Bro just keeps W-keying until he's literally running on fumes. Then Haoki grabs his hand, and he sees his energy bar fill back up like he's using an infinite battery hack. The whole squad unloads their ultimates on the boss, but Gospel is still being a total sweat and holding on. Eventually, the numbers game pays off, and Ikika manages to secure the kill by plunging his sword into the boss's core, finally deleting its shield energy once and for all. After the raid, they extract back to the beach, where Chifuyu tells them to write a 10-page essay on why they're getting detention for ignoring the admin's orders. Chifuyu hits these absolute bots with a massive training ban and forces them to grind the most toxic drills imaginable, but deep down, the head admin is just glad her favorite bunch of idiots didn't get their accounts deleted. Later that night, the NPC classmates try to leak the logs about the Gospel boss fight, but the squad stays completely silent because they're under a strict NDA from the government. Meanwhile, Tanabe is busy geeking out over Ikika's mecha suit, literally foaming at the mouth, because even she didn't realize the thing came with built-in healing hacks. But Chifuyu points out that the legendary White Knight had the exact same cheat codes enabled, which makes sense since it was the first unit Tanabe ever coded with Core 1. Chifuyu basically accuses Tanabe of being a scriptwriter and rigging the game so Ikika would replace the White Knight, but the dev hits her with the no cap and denies everything. Chifuyu realizes Tanabe rigged the Gospel to go berserk just to play the hero, but she vanishes before they can catch her. Meanwhile, Ikika is brooding on the beach, wondering if he actually protected everyone. Haoki pulls up in a sussy swimsuit, and he stares at her like he's never seen a girl before. She tells him to stop being a creep, and they chat about how everyone made it out alive. She's worried about his injuries, but he reminds her that he's basically protected by plot armor. Still, Haoki can't stop blaming herself for him getting hurt in the first place. She can't believe he's already forgiven her, so the MC activates Daddy Mode to give her a punishment. He tells her to close her eyes, then gives her a flick to the head to call it even. She gets annoyed and starts ranting while leaning into him. But when he mentions her fun bags are poking him, she immediately covers up. Right after, she puts his hand on her chest and asks if he actually sees her as a woman. He says yes and leans in for the kiss. But of course, the entire squad shows up to ruin the moment at the last second. So Ikika picks her up and makes a run for it. That's all for this recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe.